Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us at PMM Fest. Before this session starts, I just wanted to say a big thank you to all our sponsors, our partners, you, our festival attendees, and all our speakers too, because without all of you guys, none of this could have gone ahead and be the success that it has been. If you've not already checked it out, do check out our AMA site. Lots of our speakers will be heading over there after their sessions to take your questions and give their answers. So yeah, head over to the AMA site. That's all from me today. Enjoy the session.
Monday.com is the project management platform my team and I use to keep our work moving forward, anywhere, anytime. Monday.com gives us a clear picture of who's working on what and where it all stands. And when we mark something done, there's a sense of real progress. Plus, we can share files and keep each other updated, all in one place. So, if you want to get more done with your team, go to Monday.com and start your free trial today.
Hey everyone, my name is Aaron Brennan. I'm the Director of Product Marketing at a company called LastPass in Boston, Massachusetts. We deal in business process automation. Today we're going to be talking about cross-organizational alignment using OKRs, and this will be a LastPass case study. The reason it's LastPass is I used to be the Director of Product Marketing at LogMeIn, where I own the products of LogMeIn Pro, LogMeIn Central, and LastPass B2B and B2C. Before I went to LogMeIn, I was Senior Product Marketing Manager at Google that launched Glass, as well as before that I was a Product Marketing Manager who launched Google+. So I'm very excited today to talk you through sort of the LastPass case study and how we used OKRs to bring the teams cross-organizationally into alignment to what we needed within the product. So when I first went into LastPass, we really delved into the numbers, and we were taking a look at sort of how the product was built, who were the users coming in, what did they look like, how active were the users, and what does the product usage actually look for. In this case, we're really looking for product market fit. Do we have the right users coming into the product? Does the product actually fit the market? And how are things actually going? When I went in, we found that we had what we like to call a stagnant problem. When we looked at the numbers, we noticed that LastPass registrations were on the decline. We noticed that daily active users is flat. Even though we had more registrations coming in each day, we noticed that number didn't actually rise. So in that example, we were bringing in more and more people every day, somewhere between 10 and 20,000 people. And even though they were bringing in those more people, we didn't see a correlation to the daily active users. And trials for consumers and enterprise aren't converting. And we were really curious as to why. Although people were signing up, people weren't converting on the other end to make sure that we were making more money. So for us, all these three things together is what we typically call a shaky table problem. The reason it's called a shaky table problem is because when you are building a product, you're really building your product on the backs of your users, and you want to make sure that your users who are coming in are becoming daily active users, monthly active users, and then beyond that, moving into from a lax user to a novice user to a power user. So you want them moving up that line to make sure that they're becoming more active every day. That creates a healthy product, and we really started asking ourselves, is this a healthy product? And right now, if we had to stand on the table that was being held up by the legs of our users, we wouldn't trust it because of the numbers that we were seeing in this case. So with that being said, we went out and we ran a quantitative analysis and we ran a qualitative analysis and figured out that the market fit that we were actually looking for was correct, but our messaging was actually wrong. The initial messaging around LastPass was around security, and we noticed that a majority of our users on the B2C side were coming in looking for productivity. They couldn't remember if their password was an uppercase letter or did this one have the special character. They weren't so much concerned about security, and our messaging was really around security. So for that standpoint, we had a great understanding that the users weren't using because of X, Y, and Z or those specific reasons. on the B2B side, it was very similar. The users were no longer IT focused that were coming in. They were really line of business users, somebody that owned the marketing department. You need to share passwords for social media accounts, logins for CRM systems, things like that between people. And again, their concern wasn't around security. It was about how do I share these passwords with my team that makes it very easy and simple for me. And we did all this work. We built new personas and profiles. We built new messaging. We built new products and things within, new features within the product that we actually dropped in that actually helped users who were coming in engage more. So for us, we were doing tons of work. We were changing the persona. We were changing the product. We changed the entire onboarding. And we were very excited because it really aligned with sort of who our users were. So when we got all this stuff built out and went to, propose this to the rest of the teams, we started to get some pushback, right? And so, I had a great product manager at Google who always used to say, like, the great thing about being on the product side and product management and product marketing is you have all the responsibility, but yet you have no power. None of these people actually report to you. And I've actually thought that this was always a great saying, because although I worked very closely with the marketing team, none of the marketing team actually reported to me. Although he worked very closely with a lot of the engineers, none of the engineers technically reported to him. But we were always constantly needing those teams in order to be successful. So at LastPass, we had what we called OKRs, which were objectives and key results. And those were given out to individuals to say, hey, this is what I want you to work on this quarter. And they were given pretty much by the line of business owner. And those were all great, but they were really aligned to sort of the business owners and the business needs, and they were made by those line of business needs. They weren't made by me. So if I was talking to the email marketing manager, him or her would get those OKRs from their boss. So the problem is those line of business leaders' goals didn't necessarily align with the product goals. What we were trying to accomplish by creating more active users, increasing monthly active users, moving people from a lax user to a novice user to a power user. And that was a very frustrating feeling because we felt like the goals weren't necessarily aligned. So what really happened in this situation was we went around to a lot of the different teams and we said, hey, we want to do this, and we want to change this, and we want to change the message here, and we want to change the cadence here. And really it came down to who owns what. The marketing team, when we talked to them, their job was to get leads, right? They didn't care how they got them. They were being judged and bonused out by getting leads. That's great, but we needed the right leads to come into the product. From the sales side, their job was to close deals. They didn't care who was coming into the product, but their job was to make sure that they closed deals and hit their quota. For the solutions engineers or the solutions architects, their job was to get users deployed. It didn't really matter if they used the product afterwards or if they aligned with what the sales goals and objectives were that they talked about. They just wanted to get people deployed. That's what they were comped on. That was their expectation. And so even if they deployed and no one used, it wasn't great. When we talk to customer success or customer support, their job was to ensure expansion. So, or retention. So for them, it was really being on the phone and saying, hey, well, what else can I sell you? But the problem is that experience for a customer is really kind of not great. You can tell that each one of the customers is being sent a different message and talked to very differently from each vantage point here to make sure that they're ensure success. So, the great example I always love to have is, and currently we run into this problem a little bit at AirSlate, is our customer success manager is calling into all these accounts, making sure, trying to get them to expand and buy new functions and features and things that we can sell them, but never really asking the question of how are you using the product? How can I help you be more successful in how you use the product? If we can engage with the customer to be more active within the product from a product marketing standpoint, we get a lot more feedback. We get a lot more case studies. We get a lot more metrics that we can use to validate with the market, to make sure that we're correct, to do a lot more testing, to test the messaging more. Like for us on the product marketing side, this is extremely important that active users is a number that really sits in our world. So, I had a great product manager whose name was Oliver, and he used to go around saying, don't ship the org chart. Right? And in the grand scheme of things, the person that is most important here is the customer. And with all those different criteria, the customer feels that pain throughout each one of the process. And so if you're shipping the org chart, that means that every time your customer moves to a different part of the organization, they feel a different person or a different message or a different goal or agenda at each one of these points. And that is not a great customer experience. That's not something that, a customer is going to be very, very excited about. So in that circumstance, the customer really starts to feel the pain. And then they start to ask questions like, who am I talking to? Wait, I was just talking to sales, now I'm talking to customer support. Oh, I clearly am talking to marketing right now from this email that came through. And then why are you telling me a different story than what I heard from the salesperson and the customer success person are telling me two different stories? Or you seem to have a very different agenda than the last person I talked to, right? And these are all questions that customers start to ask themselves when they're going through this customer journey, and especially for us at LastPass, when they would come through marketing, they were getting one messaging. When they were coming in through the product, they were getting another messaging. When they talked to support, they were getting another message because their goals were all different within their organization that they needed to hit. And this was very painful to customers. We talked to many customers who said that they didn't know what was going on. They were getting different messages at different points. The people that they were talking to in each one of these areas were fundamentally telling them different stories. And we did hear a lot of people say, you know what, I'm done. I'm not working with you guys anymore. This is frustrating. You were supposed to make my job easier. You were supposed to make my job better. You were supposed to give me a leg up in the company or organization, or just on my day-to-day values and what I'm trying to accomplish if you're running a consumer product. So for us, it's really about taking that away, because really the focus is on the customer. Is that customer happy? Are we helping them move forward with what they needed? And at LastPass, we found that we were not helping them with any of that information. They were very confused. So for us, we actually made product marketing own the customer journey. No one actually owned the customer journey. Everybody owned a piece of the customer journey, and that transition part was very harsh. As you can see, as you saw on the slide before, those were a lot of the questions I got. Is who am I talking to? What department are you in? Wait, I was just talking to somebody yesterday. They told me a different story. I bought this because I was positioned this way, and now you're positioning this way. And so this all came down to the way that the organization was set up and what the line of business goals were. So we set out to say that the product marketing organization owns the customer journey. And we like to say this is from what is this to back in my day. What this means is, what is this is before the customer even knows what the product is, they're curious about it. So what is this? So the customer journey starts with the, hey, what is this? What is this widget? What is this thing that you're selling? What is this, right? And that's where that customer journey really starts. And then we focus through all the way to back in my day. What back in my day means is, hey, I've been in this product for so long that back in my day, it was a very different product. So the customer journey really expands on however long the customer is actually in the product. Now, I do know a lot of product marketing teams where the product marketing organization is just responsible for getting people into the product, and then product management takes over for that. Really, that's where you're starting that handoff again, that nobody owns it. You need to pay attention to how are people going into the product, how are you building out your customer success stories, how are you building out the fact that people are moving from lax users to novice users to power users. That all falls in the product marketing world, and that falls with the customer journey. So when you're thinking about product marketing and you're thinking about your customer journey, you're really starting at the, hey, what is somebody's message when they first see the product versus what is the messaging that they see after they've been in the product for 10 years, right? Those are very different expectations, and each one of those users have very different expectations of the product. And product marketing owns that, and that's the way we built that at LastPass. So in order to define success, we had to take a look at LastPass and really decide, how do we keep LastPass healthy? How do we keep those daily registration numbers going up? How do we increase on our daily active users and our monthly active users? And how do we increase revenue to make sure that the product is healthy, right? These are numbers that we wanted to make sure we were growing day in and day out. The problem is not necessarily, these numbers isn't necessarily align with some of the line of business owners. So we were really asking ourselves, how do we define success among line of business owners? And what we did is we stepped back and we actually started to build out what we called product OKRs. So these are very different than regular OKRs. So this is very different than Katie needs to improve onboarding by 10%. This was very much around, okay, the objectives and the key results for this product need to be what every quarter. And we drove these into 4 different areas, which was drive new user adoption, retain current users, deepen product adoption, and drive revenue. And below each one of those things were key metrics of success that would ultimately roll up into those higher arching goals that we set out for the product in order to keep it healthy, and those objectives and key results. And really, when we were building this, we were looking at how do other teams have an effect on these numbers, who really brings in and engages with each one of these numbers. And we wanted to make sure that all teams across the board had a place within these OKRs. And finally, lastly, we wanted to create a single dashboard to rule them all. One of the problems that we were running into is when we went to the marketing department, they had their own dashboard. When we went to customer success, they had their own dashboard. When we went to sales, they had their own dashboard. So everybody has their own dashboard, but you never get an actual view into, hey, what happens once these people leave this dashboard and move on to the next iteration? Do we see a drop-off? Is there a gap in how we're communicating or how these people are moving forward, right? That makes them feel like, hey, maybe I'm not being told the right story. Maybe my customer journey is very clunky and not helpful. So for us, it was very important that we get everybody aligned with this dashboard to make sure that this was the place that we could rally all metrics around. So although they still use their own dashboards to get sort of more granular in each one of the numbers, these numbers were high level where we would get a better understanding of, hey, are we seeing a drop-off across the board? And we could actually track it as we went. So if we changed some of the messaging in the front end, we could see it changing in the back end and how it engaged with other teams. So, once we built those OKRs, once we looked at how they affected other teams, we really brought the teams together. So this was all around, assembling the group, because in order for myself to be successful at LastPass, I needed the marketing team to be on board with the changes we made. I needed the customer support team to start talking about the right message that we wanted to portray and the key metrics that we wanted to see move forward in order to continue to have a healthy product. But also make sure that they aligned with what their successes were. So, we brought everyone together. We talked around the OKRs. We made sure that the OKRs matched what they were doing. And we brought together the teams of marketing, customer success and support, solutions architects and solutions engineering when necessary. So we did have some B2B products that had solutions engineers and solutions architects. So we brought them to the table when it was B2B focused. When it was B2C focused, we didn't bring those people in. And the same thing with sales. On our B2C side, we were a company that had a B2C product, and that B2C product did not need sales talking to them. We were a very product focused sell. So they would come in, they would see the value, and then they would come in. So for our B2B side of things, we brought those people in. On the other side, we did not. Lastly, product management and product marketing. Each line of business owner that came in looked over the objectives and key results of deepening product adoption, driving revenue, driving registrations, as well as increasing active usage. And we decided to assign teams that would have an effect on their overall goal. So for example, the team assigned to new active users, within the first 28 days, we had a product marketing manager, we had an email marketing manager, we had a lead gen, and we had a customer success manager. And that team was really our SWAT team. We kept it rather small, made sure that they were aware that they needed to improve these numbers by this amount in order to move things forward. And because we had different people from different teams working together, and those line of business people bought in, because when we built the OKRs, we built it to align with their the line of business owners' needs and wants. It was very easy for them to rally around that number. So, the way that we managed to kind of build this was really by, creating small SWAT teams. And they would come up with the execution plans. So, for example, in that previous team that we saw, when we talked to that team, and their job was to increase new active registrations previous 28 days, we were not giving them direct feedback to say, these are the steps you need to do in order to do that, now go execute. We were giving them the freedom to go out and say, hey, this is what we want to do, and this is how we want to move this number forward. And so really we were putting the power in their hands and letting us look at the overarching or higher objective that we wanted to hit moving forward. From there, those small teams would check in once a week with each other, checking on the numbers that they were going after. So for us, we said we wanted to increase, new active registrations previous 28 days by 15% in the first quarter. So they checked in, they had an action plan, and then if things weren't working, they changed that action plan. The management team would then give a sponsor to one of these small SWAT teams. And these small SWAT teams would actually go out and these management teams would go out and be the sponsor for these SWAT teams and work directly with that executive management team in order to make sure that what they were working on was successful, or answer any questions, or bring any of that stuff back to us. In the management team, which would consist of the director of product marketing, director of product management, director of marketing, director of customer success, and the director or VP of sales, we would sync bi-weekly to review the cross-functional OKR numbers. So that metric and dashboard that we saw, we would then go over it with a fine-tooth comb and say, okay, we're seeing movement here. And those SWAT teams are being successful there. These teams seem to be struggling a little bit. We need to spend a little bit more time working with them and making sure that they're successful at what they do. And so by building this out, we were able to put small SWAT teams, and because they were cross-functional, all their goals aligned to what they needed. And so that way we could make sure that, the teams were really helping each other push their own numbers forward. So really what happened after this was done? So after about a year, we saw some really big changes. Actually, it was less than a year. It was about 6 months. We saw increased daily active users increase by 25%. We saw increased registrations by 22%. We saw increased successful trials by 15%. And these were all fantastic numbers that we saw going up and up to the right. We saw our OKR numbers start to move in the right direction. We started to notice a rise in the number of power users that we had. And that was ultimately what we wanted: better power users, more active users, people having a better experience coming in. And we ran quantitative and qualitative analysis after it, trying to get some feedback from our customers. And ultimately, our NPS score actually improved. And this was all based because we went out and found out what the OKRs were that were going to be very, very successful. And this is still going on today. So, from here, I have brought the OKRs into AirSlate. So we are still driving new user adoption. We're deepening product adoption. we're driving active usage, and we're driving revenue. And we developed this and got this aligned with all the teams so that each team had some of their goals in these OKRs to make sure that they were really successful going forward. And we're growing the Airslate product by leaps and bounds because of this. So the question I get a lot is, how should I start this, or how should I do this? What are some of the key concepts that I really need to look at? And I've broken them down into 4 distinct areas that you can really engage with and talk to from your team. So the first one is don't lose alone. Because of the expansiveness of what product marketing is, we need to engage with multiple different departments across an organization, especially if what you're working on is the customer journey, and owning that customer journey and how that customer gets messaged to across, you need to work cross-functionally. So don't lose alone. Rally a team around you that can help you build this functionality internally. Typically, I always suggest grabbing a product manager as your first line of person to help you move forward, then the marketing team, then a customer success team or customer support, and working with those teams to start to rally around, hey, we need to do this. Your success equals my success. In order to build the OKRs, you need to find out, what are other teams' goals. So when we talk to marketing, we really understood that their job was just to get leads. So a lot of the team that was built around, new registrations and usage, those teams were really around marketing. So we found the marketing, what marketing was being qualified for and what marketing was being held to from a numbers standpoint. And we incorporated those numbers into our OKRs in some way, shape, or form. So from our standpoint, we needed to increase the number of leads that we had from the previous quarter. We actually just rolled that in and just incorporated that into the new registrations previous 28 days. And so then that way, when you're building out these teams, those teams start to function a little bit differently. So for us, by taking the marketing metric and moving that into a little bit of a number underneath sort of active usage previous 28 days, by bringing in a lead, then we would expect them to be active user previous 28 days. We were able to bring in marketing, and they were much more happy to engage with us because we were helping them hit their numbers. When it came to customer success, we were really talking around daily active usage and monthly active usage. So customer success would work with product management and product marketing more around daily active users and things like that. Marketing managers typically didn't work with on the daily active users or monthly active users unless it was email related or some sort of communication related function that was on the marketing side. Swim with the current. So as I said before, not only is it finding out what those other team goals are, but it's swimming with the current. So if you try to force numbers on a team that don't align with them, you're going to be swimming against the current. Trying to get a marketing team or trying to get a customer success team or trying to get a sales team engaged with you, if you don't align with their numbers, you're not going to be successful. You're going to end up very frustrated in the way that you're trying to get them on board with you because they're being held to a certain set of standards. You need to make sure that they understand your standards and bring them in. So really your standards need to be a little bit more flexible, and you need to be able to take the standards that they're being held to, kind of fit them into yours. The OKRs are a great function for doing that because you can take those and make broader goals that include your metrics and their metrics that each of you need to hit and say, hey, we need to increase this number to engage with. Lastly, Rome wasn't built in a day. Start small like a product launch. You can really start to rally around OKRs around a product launch because not everyone is in a position of power in order to engage with this, right? Sometimes it's It's getting other people on board who might be at a higher level than you are. So start small and show that this can work. And you can start small with a product launch. So when you're launching your next functions or features, create OKRs that can align to each department's goals, and then put together a plan of how you're going to execute on that and bring the necessary people in, and create those numbers that cross-functionally hit everybody, and then create small SWAT teams to go after those things. The highly suggest you build out the metrics you want to hit for the launch before you do that. So say you want to increase, registrations by a lot or sales by a lot, we'll say like sales by 20%, registrations by 20%, and active users by 25%, right? Building out those numbers clearly gives you the advantage to roll this out in a smaller frame. Once you do that, you then can show that it works and run this up the flagpole, saying maybe we should do this more broadly across multiple teams, across management teams, and things like that. So even if you're not in a place where you're a manager and you can start saying, hey, we need to implement OKRs when your company has never done it. Start small, start with a product launch, something that you really own, create your own numbers around it, and show success. Once you show success, it becomes much easier to engage with management teams to accept that maybe this is a task that you need to do, a function that the organization needs to pick up and start doing on a more day-to-day basis. So this is all I have. If you have any questions, I'm happy to hear them. If you really want to ask any more questions outside of this, please feel free to contact me on LinkedIn or through the product marketing Slack channel. I am always online, as some of you know, who have attended this call today. I've talked to you on the Slack channel. I'm always happy to answer questions and help you guys move forward. I ultimately want to see product marketing be incredibly successful. I love product marketing. I've been doing this for 10 years, so totally open to your questions. Are there any questions?